Welcome back, Spurs fans, to another edition of Casa De Spurs special episode tonight. We've got Ben Zajdel, a recovering Mavs fan. I'm just kidding. No, he's a good guy. Former writer for The Smoking Cuban, hanging out with us, and Steven is here as usual. So welcome to the show, guys.
I'm repping Lonnie Walker today, Trace. A lot of support for, my guy, Lonnie Walker, regardless of popular opinion.
We'll have to talk about him in a little bit. But first, since we have Ben here, Ben, I think I asked you this the first time you came on the show, and I can't remember the answer, so I'm going to ask you again, and maybe it's changed. But my fun icebreaker for guests here is if you had to rock a jersey in public for a player that does not play for your team, who would you pick and why? Current player, I should say, current player. You can't cheat and say Kobe or MJ.
Gotcha. Okay. Current player. Oh, thanks for having me on, guys. It's good to be back. I think this is the third time I've been back, so I appreciate you guys having me. So I guess, I've got a Westbrook jersey in the closet right now. I should have wore that. So that would be one. I love how I don't have any jerseys anymore. I just kind of don't have that anymore. I'm a cheapskate. Don't really want to buy a ton of them. Plus, there's just something about these guys. You buy a jersey and then 2 years later they're off the team or something. So I'm just I've stopped. But yeah, I would do Westbrook.
Money down the drain.
Right. So Westbrook though it's one of the Christmas Day jerseys from 5 years ago when they used to do that. So I really mostly liked the OKC jersey. It was really cool. It's blue with some cool cursive writing on it. So I really like that one. But Westbrook, just like how he goes out and plays with heart. There's a little bit of stat chasing every now and then, but for the most part, I just appreciate his determination and just the hustle every night. That's kind of my type of player. So sometimes it's not for the best of the team, but at least he's given 100%, which is more than you could say for a lot of players in the NBA. So I
dig it. On that note, I got a Fiesta jersey. I don't know when it's coming. None of us do. They are allegedly shipping at some point. I picked Patty Mills because I know at this point, even if he is not playing with the Spurs anymore, he's got enough of a Spurs legacy that I'm
right.
I won't be embarrassed in 2 years. If I don't know, buy a rookie jersey and they doesn't stick around.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the last jersey I had was Dirk. So, and I don't even have that one anymore. So.
It's really the only one you ever need if you're a Mavs fan. That'll
right.
Well, that and a Boban jersey. I'm a little surprised you're not rocking that.
I'm gonna hurt feelings because I don't care for Boban. I know both fan bases, San Antonio and Dallas. Everybody loves him, and which I like his personality and everything. But I just hate when he walks onto a basketball court. It makes me sad.
He's lovable. Right. He's not very good at basketball.
The bench antics, the cool videos that you get on social and everything, that's perfect, man. I love it. But watching him try and play defense is pretty painful.
Well, speaking of 7-footers on the Dallas Mavericks, I think Steven has a juicy question to kick this segment off with you.
Yeah, Ben, I just don't know too much about Mavs Twitter and how it goes, but over on our world for Spurs Twitter, we like to suggest trading anyone and everyone on our team at all times, and that's right after we've dubbed them either the MVP or the Rookie of the Year or XYZ. I don't know if you guys have that problem.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Okay, good. But there is one universal guy that Spurs fans are, I think, ready collectively to move on from, and that's LaMarcus Aldridge. And so I always get thinking about how this stuff works and how fan bases view their guys. I think as it relates to you and the Mavericks, you guys made a move, I guess it was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, to snag Kristaps Porzingis. Which a lot of people have dubbed, he's the unicorn, right? He's a 7'2" guy who likes to shoot threes. Rick Carlisle says he never wants him to post up ever again, which, hey, Rick Carlisle is Rick Carlisle. He can do what he wants to do. But I'm just curious to know what your take and what Mavericks Twitter or your followers on Twitter, what kind of the general consensus is for Kristaps Porzingis, and if you guys think trading this guy, breaking up the fearsome Luka and unicorn duo, what kind of return would you guys expect to hope for in a trade that might send Kristaps somewhere else?
Okay. Well, I guess to start to break that down, Mavs Twitter is really divided on Porzingis. Half the people are like, "Hey, let's give him time. Let him get back in rhythm." We've seen some stretches where he's been lights out. I mean, you're talking 25 to 30 points a night for like 10 game stretches. So they want to, give him some time to work this out. There's another half that is like, "Hey, let's just trade this guy. We don't really care. We just want to move on." So there's a lot of back and forth with that. Porzingis for me is complicated because, like I said, there are these 10 to 15 game stretches that he's had where he looks, like, man, every team in the NBA would want this guy. Talking about a 7-footer that shoots and like shoots at high percentages. So there's some games where you're absolutely like, man, this is the best of both. I mean, in my opinion, him and Luka fit really well together. There's not a question about fit. Their games kind of mesh together pretty well. One of my big complaints with Porzingis on offense would be that I wish he would roll to the basket a little bit more. He kind of picks, does the pop instead of a dive to the basket. But I think there's a lot of concern, him and the Mavericks, about injuries, and they don't want him flying in the middle of the lane with all the contact that can cause. So I think that's kind of designed rather than an inability. So that the fit is there. The stretches where he struggles are concerning to me. There's a lot of concerns for Porzingis. I mean, I think it's obvious what the pros for Porzingis are. You've got this 7-footer stretching the floor, and then playing some pretty good rim defense, even though that can, be a little overrated in my opinion. So, because there's two problems with Porzingis. So number one, right now at least, teams are not playing their center on him. They are putting a smaller player like a wing, 6'7" to 6'8" on him instead of their center, and then they'll put their center on whoever our power forward is. And so that's not helping stretch the floor, if that makes sense. Like for instance, against the Jazz, Rudy Gobert wasn't guarding Porzingis. So really having this 7'3" center that can shoot threes didn't matter because Gobert was still hanging around the block and in the paint to guard the rim. And they had Royce O'Neal guarding Porzingis. And Porzingis can't make them pay when on offense to change that up. So, I mean, you talked about the post-ups. He can't post up. I mean, that's why Carlisle doesn't want to post him up. Right. Last I saw, it might be different, because stats changed, but the last I saw, he was at like 0.97 points per possession on post-ups. He's not getting – the numbers aren't good. The shooting percentages are bad. And this is with guys that are 6'6", 6'7". I think he's just so skinny and tall that smaller guys can kind of move him off his spot when he goes to shoot, and it really throws off his balance. Yeah. So, there's that issue. And then the rim protection with Porzingis is a little overrated. He has games when he's active and energetic, he can affect, shots at the rim. But I've seen a lot of times where guards just drive right into him and, score on him. And he's late coming out. He actually is better off ball help than he is on ball. And so he can really come over and help from the weak side a lot on paint attempts. But that's like I talked about with that energy, that's his choice. Is it going to be a night where he does that, or is it going to be a night where he doesn't? So,
we've got a few guys like that.
Yeah. So anyway, there's,
so this guy's sitting here, he signed your largest contract in franchise history. I think I read that correctly.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, he's coming up. He's another 4 years under contract. So I don't know how serious the Mavericks are moving away from that, but what are you hoping for in trading if you were to consider shopping for Kristaps Porzingis?
So right now, I don't think you can get anything worth trading him for, just because those hot stretches that I've talked about. He's been playing really well the last week. You need more than a week to get some good trade value for him. So if he played well through this rest of this year and stayed injury free, they could maybe get a good return for him. I could, in my wildest dreams, I see a package with him for Bradley Beal. You know, him and maybe a pick or two and some young guys for Bradley
center.
Beal. I have one drawn up. I can't remember it now exactly, but it was something with him and Bradley Beal and Davis Bertans, who I'm sure you guys are really familiar with.
The sore subject on this podcast, man.
I'm sure it is. So yeah, that was, you know, like I said, I think that's the best case scenario. That's where Porzingis lights the world on fire. But then you got to ask, if he's lighting the world on fire, do the Mavs really want to make that trade?
Yeah, at that point, do you want to? Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of my rational mind. When he's putting up 12 points and like 3 rebounds on 1 of 8 shooting,
that's tough.
I'm ready to trade him for like 2 second-round picks, man. Because there's times, honestly, like, so as an irrational fan about it, there's sometimes, I'm sure you guys have had players like this where you know it would be stupid to trade them, but on the other hand, you just want to be done with the whole scenario. You don't have to like watch the game and wonder if Porzingis landed weird on his knee and is that going to cause a problem? And you know, is he going to show up to shoot around and his knee feels sore? And then because the problem is, okay, if he's out, let's say 5 games, well, so far that we've seen, there's a readjustment period for him when he comes back. He doesn't come back and just immediately return to peak Porzingis. He comes back and it takes him about 10 games to get back to peak Porzingis. Yeah. And that's frustrating to watch, especially in a season like this where, you know, he was out about 10 games and it took him about 10 games to round into form. Well, that's a quarter of a season, you know, and honestly, more than a quarter of a season this year. And then in a regular season, that's about a quarter of the season. So it's frustrating. So sometimes you love Porzingis, and sometimes, like I said, I was at some point wanting to, you know, trade him for an expiring contract. I mean, again, that's irrational and stupid, but you know,
we've got one of those.
It makes you do that sometimes. You know, you're
sure.
Just, like I said, you're just tired of like wondering about how the Porzingis situation is going to go.
Do you think he's? I mean, like over the major injury, because we had a situation where, you know, DeJounte Murray the other year tore his ACL like in the first 5 minutes of the preseason, and then last season his first full season back, like he just didn't look like he had it. And Steven and I have had to eat our words on him so far this season because he's been pretty lights out almost the entire year. And then, you know, we just couldn't see that coming last year, the way he had come back from the injury. So I guess, players are coming back from injuries more than they ever have in their careers before. But like some of these major like lower leg injuries still can, you never know how someone's going to respond. And Kristaps being a 7-footer, you know, it's probably even worse for a guy like him.
Yeah. I wonder. I think he's fully recovered from the ACL. I don't think that's an issue. You know, he had the meniscus repair on, I believe it was the opposite knee of the ACL knee. And he seems like he's back over that. He's running around better. He's moving. Earlier in this stretch when he came back, he was not moving around at all. He looks a step slow. I don't know if he's a step slow or if it's tentativeness over the knee, you know. But I mean, either way, that could be an issue if he's going to be for the rest of his career kind of concerned about possibly injuring himself. Well, then that's a concern. You know, that's going to hold him back from playing. But again, maybe he gets over it. And then, you know, maybe we're past the stretch of, you know, I mean, like an ACL is a freak injury. The meniscus tear, I mean, that could be just a freak injury. But, you know, he's had a lot of leg injuries on both legs. You know, I believe last I saw it was 13 or 15. So it was in the teens either way. And, you know, number one, even if, you know, he doesn't have very many more, that eventually takes a toll on a guy and their athleticism. And then number two, I, you know, have no reason to think there's not another injury coming down the pike, you know. So
yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the Southwest Division in general. I said maybe just 1 or 2 weeks ago that I thought Dallas was going to win the division still, even though they have had kind of a slow start, just because I think based on pure talent, you know, they're the most talented team on paper in the division, especially after James Harden was traded. Now was looking at the standings and I'm just kind of like scratching my head because the Southwest Division doesn't look anything like I've thought it should look like, or that it has looked like in like many recent years. It used to be like one of the toughest conferences in the whole league, and now we've got, I think, just one. I think the Spurs are the only team that are over 500 right now. Maybe Memphis is. I can't remember. I know they lost.
Which nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
Right.
We're all surprised at that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I thought we were doomed for the basement for a couple of years, but at this point, you know, it is a shortened season, but we are, you know, over a quarter of the way there. How do you think the standings are going to shake out for the Southwest?
I think the Mavs do. It's like you said, they have more talent than everybody if it all stays together injury free. I think they do eventually end up at the top of that division. They have the easiest schedule left in the league. They've played the hardest schedule so far, and they've got the easiest schedule left. I think a lot of that will depend on the actual schedule, which hasn't been released yet. I'm wondering when that's coming out. But as far as the opponents left, you know, they've got the easiest schedule. They have a lot of trouble with back-to-backs. I mean, like you could set your clock to them losing a back-to-back, man. I think since Luka's rookie year, it was 10-21. They're bad on the second night of a back-to-back, man.
We're 0-4 this year, so if we have to play a back-to-back, it'll be very interesting to see who shows up in game 2.
So I think it'll depend on, you know, how many of those that are baked into the second half of the schedule. But it should get a little bit easier. I mean, I didn't want to make excuses, but having those guys, the 4 guys that we had out with COVID-19, the health and safety protocols, that really did affect the team. I mean, we had Wes and Wondu playing big minutes. A couple of rookies like Josh Green that just aren't NBA ready right now. They didn't have a training camp really, and they didn't have an off season. There's some rookies that have come in and were ready to play, and Josh Green for me is just not one of them. So you know, it's been a little tough sledding. I'm not sure about the other teams' schedules. You know, like I think the Pelicans are eventually going to fade. The Grizzlies, I'm not sure about. I think the Rockets are finally coming back to earth. I think they had a big bump once Harden was out of there, just because it was fun to play basketball for them again. But I think they're kind of coming back down to earth. So I think it might come down to the Spurs and the Mavericks. And like I said, you just got to think that if Luka and KP stay healthy, that they'll eventually put it together. I mean, they're, I believe, 3-2 since they got the whole roster back. That includes a few games where these guys are still getting their win back, because 2 of the games where they had 3 of the COVID protocol guys back were in Utah at that elevation. I'm sure coming off a respiratory illness, even if they had no symptoms or anything like that, you know, you're just sitting in a hotel room. I'm sure you guys have played basketball, you know, regularly, and if you take like a week or 2 off, man, your breath, dude, it just doesn't come back quick. It's really bad. So and I'm talking about pickup ball at the park, you know.
Right.
Can't imagine in an NBA game the you know, conditioning you have to have, and just sitting in a hotel room for a week or 2 probably just destroys that. So and then to come back, like I said, at that elevation probably just was really tough on them. So hopefully you're seeing, like, I mean, like I said, they've won 3 of their last 4. It's been really bad teams that they're playing. Well, not bad teams. I mean, they played the Warriors, who I wouldn't say are bad, but the Warriors didn't have any centers to play. So I would say a lot of that is circumstantial, but at least
we got in on some of that action.
Yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, we'll see. I think Dallas eventually comes out on top, but the position they put themselves in, it might be a race. Whereas at the beginning of the year, I thought it was going to be just a clear, you know, Dallas would win the division by like 8 or 10 games or something like that. Now I think it might come down to the wire.
I always think that you can have you know, talented teams, you can have good teams, and if they're close, usually the team with the best player will come out on top. And I love the San Antonio Spurs, but they don't really have a player that's in the ballpark of Luka right now. So you guys should win the division.
You should, but man, you just, like I said, so far this year, you just don't know what you're going to get with this team. And like I said, whether that had to do with injuries or the health and safety protocols, guys being in and out of the lineup. Luka showed up out of shape. I think he was not expecting the season to start as soon as it did. So he kind of had to play
Yeah, bro,
himself
he looked like
into
me.
shape. Yeah, like I said, well, there's so many things. Like I said, you get to a certain age and you've played basketball when you're out of shape and you recognize it, man. You can just see it on the court. You're like, oh, that's what I would do. Fans complain about Luka taking these step back threes a lot because he doesn't make them very often. And it's, that's what you do when you get tired. You stop driving and just take some fadeaway threes. It's easier.
Yep. Ben, one last thing before we gotta move on to our next segment, but what is your spiciest NBA take just in general that you've got for this season?
Oh, okay. I can blow this up. I don't think Zion Williamson can be the best player on a championship team.
Ooh.
So I don't know how spicy that is, but that's the best I got right now. Is I don't think he might be able, number 2, number 3 best player, but I don't think he could carry a team to a championship. And I'm willing to.
He's not LeBron.
Yeah, no, I just don't. I mean, like, it could all change if he gets a really good 3-point shot, maybe. But I just, I think he's a valuable guy to have on a team, and absolutely is, a star. But I just don't see, he's gonna, be the guy who carries a team to a championship. He could be a big part of a good team, but much like Porzingis, I don't think Porzingis is the number 1 best player that can carry a team to a championship. But he's a guy you want on your team.
For sure. Right. Cool. Ben, awesome. Thanks for joining us on the show. It's always good to chat with you, and look forward to seeing you on Twitter and wherever else you're writing.
Yeah, I'm on Mavs Moneyball now. So
you're on Mavs Moneyball now. Awesome.
Yeah, you guys can check me out there. Man. Mostly just doing game stuff, but every now and then I write an article that's kind of bigger picture. But for the most part, just doing game recaps and previews, stuff like that. So just find me at Twitter at Ben Zajdel. So.
Awesome. Ben Zajdel, the man, the myth, the legend. Thanks, bro. Good seeing you,
thanks,
man.
Guys. It's always good to see you. All right, bye.
Take it easy, bud. Always good to have our good friend Ben on the line, Trace, and hopefully Ben can step out and grab a fresh triple meat Whataburger from his friendly neighborhood. That's right. There's been some accusations that this is a salad or a spicy chicken podcast. It's a burger podcast, and I'm here to talk about the triple meat Whataburger. Comes on a large bun with 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 large beef patties, 3 pieces of American cheese. Of course, always comes with lettuce, tomato, pickle, onion, and a mustard. You can get them however you like to get them. That's Whataburger your way. I like to throw grilled jalapenos and bacon on mine. That's just my personal preference, but you can never go wrong as long as it's a Whataburger. So if you're around Whataburger, go eat one for me and Trace, a triple meat Whataburger from your friendly neighborhood Whataburger. Trace, the Spurs have played basketball. They're doing better than we all thought that they would. Some days they're in 4th place, and other days they're in 11th place because that's how close the Western Conference is. They are just coming off a back-to-back, and we kind of mentioned it with Ben. This team, the San Antonio Spurs, also suffer with what's that phrase? Sega Baba?
Sega Baba. I'm not a big fan of the phrase, honestly. I find it to be it's too long. Just call it a back-to-back, man.
It's way more fun to like type out in a tweet than it is to say out loud.
Yeah.
But the San Antonio Spurs what are they? 0-3, 0-4?
0-4.
0-4 in second games of a back-to-back. They played swimmingly in game 1 against the Warriors. I mean, I thought that was DeJounte Murray's best game as a pro. That was spectacular. 8 steals, but 27 points on 10 of 19. Wow.
Yeah. The dude almost got a triple-double with steals as one of his stats. That's impressive.
Yeah, that was really nice. And then they all came crashing down to earth in the 3rd quarter of the second game. And it was just like, oh, we're done.
Yeah, which has been a trend for them. The Spurs this season have not been a good 3rd quarter team. And I don't know what it is. Honestly, it's especially on the second games of back-to-backs. It's like maybe I'll project a little. Maybe it's this.
Sure.
Maybe it's that the old guys by halfway through the second game, they're like, oh man, I can't do it anymore. And the young guys, like, they come in so hard after like a victory on the first night of a back-to-back, and they just like their energy doesn't match like the level of mental fortitude needed to actually connect. I mean, like, Keldon Johnson's in a slump right now. He actually wasn't great in the first game against the Warriors either, but none of the young guys, DeJounte included, looked impressive against the Warriors on the second game.
It's interesting you bring up the slump of Keldon Johnson. See, the reason that we like Keldon Johnson as a fan base is because of his energy and his effort, which I will, to commend him, say, despite this slump, whatever we want to call it, that the energy and effort is still there. He leaves a good 3 or 4 shots at the rim, leaves some points on the board, but he's still attacking. He's still getting to the basket.
Yeah.
However,
he's starting to get free throws, which is saving his point total. Otherwise, he would have some brutal nights.
Yeah, because he was not looking so hot at the free throw line. And this is a guy that played guard at Kentucky, so I will admit I was impressed with his ability to attack the rim, rebound the basketball, both on the defensive and offensive side of the glass. But I did expect to see him be a little bit better, maybe a little more consistent shooter. Yeah. And so I think that's something that the Spurs could really benefit from, is to having a consistent shooter on the wing. Sometimes that's Lonnie Walker. Again, repping the shirt today. Sometimes it's not Lonnie Walker. Usually it's not Lonnie Walker. Sometimes it's Keldon Johnson. Usually it's not Keldon Johnson. Sometimes it's Derek White, but he's been a little bit. So I feel like they're still trying to figure out what that thing is. I think every team kind of needs like a third guy. Right now, the Spurs seem to have 2 guys, DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan. Those are the 2 guys that are kind of making this engine roar a little bit. But until somebody is able to consistently step up as a third person, you're still driving a Prius and not really a vehicle that makes your engine roar, if we're going to go with that particular analogy. Nothing against driving Priuses and saving the environment. But but this is what we should expect. Inconsistency. Again, it's a young team and it's okay. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'd like to see who that next guy is going to be.
Yeah, I feel like they've gotten by when they've gotten by this season when they've looked really good, it's because they've had a third person who has decided to I don't know, pour some coal in the engine of that Prius, and
there you go.
Whatever.
There you go.
Whatever we're doing here. And like that and actually, that's been Keldon in a lot of games. Although if you look at it, I think a lot of Keldon's best games have come in losses. Like he's scored almost
stat padding.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really, I don't know if I would call it stat padding, but I think it's he just hasn't been able to figure out when to show up at the same time as everybody else. And he's kind of like, oh, all right, I'll take lead tonight. And then everyone's like, oh man, you got it. It's all you, just you, all you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate that they haven't figured out how to sync up a little bit better on those. But I think you're totally right. Like DeJounte wouldn't have expected to stay this last season, but he's a guy that you can kind of count on to be consistent night in, night out. We knew we were getting that with DeMar DeRozan. We used to have that with LaMarcus Aldridge his first couple years in San Antonio. Whether you liked him or not, you knew what he was going to bring to the table every night. And now, well, obviously he's been injured, but when he's been there, I guess what you know he's bringing to the table is a negative defensive rating. So
that's what you know. I do think that we need to give some real credit to DeJounte Murray for a second. The shot that he hit at the end of the first game, the San Antonio Spurs do not have a guy on their team who can do that. He hit a step back turnaround 3 to close the game. And as much as I've been a DeMar guy, I think you're kind of a DeMar guy. We like DeMar. We understand that he's not the best player in the league, but that's not really in DeMar's wheelhouse. A turnaround step back 3, maybe a mid-range, but for DeJounte to do that close game with DeMar on the court, Trace, Big time shot. And this is a guy who 2 years ago suffered a brutal ACL injury in his second year. Third year really took him some time to get back, and he has come out. It's like he looks like he has some serious potential to, when we talk about what a guy looks like and what a guy has potential to do, it's not just their physical attributes or their athleticism or something like that. It's kind of the total package. It's their mental capacity, their work ethic, their intelligence. And what I've seen from DeJounte, honestly, since the two of us were questioning whether he was the point guard of the future, has been all of those boxes checked. His mental IQ has been up. His work ethic has been up. His aggressiveness, his intensity, his tenacity. And it all came together. And I thought that play, granted, it was one play in his fourth year of a still very young player, but what a turnaround and of events for him. And if that's the type of player that Spurs fans can look forward to down the road, I mean, that's Tony Parker status. I mean, that's what that is. He's heading towards that direction. That's awesome.
I was just going to say, if that's what we're going to get in the future, we might be looking at the best point guard to ever start for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of things have to happen, but he's also he's getting Pop, it was interesting. Pop post game so specifically mentioned Tony Parker when talking about DeJounte Murray and just like how he how their relationship is actually pretty similar to early days of Tony. Tony, I don't think Tony was asking for Pop to light his ass up as much as he did, because Pop specifically called out that DeJounte as like asked Pop to like let him have it. I don't think he got that from Tony, but but just hearing the way that Pop has been, Pop doesn't go out of his way to gush over people very often on his own team or anywhere else. So hearing him say that about DeJounte is pretty cool. I've got a nitpick, if you'll allow a nitpick on DeJounte Murray's game. I think there are times where he needs to, like I say, it's about Jakob a lot, but DeJounte needs to throw it down sometimes too.
Yeah.
There was I can't remember who was defending him last night, but they were definitely not as big as DeJounte Murray, or not as tall as DeJounte Murray, I should say. And he was driving in, and he opted to go for like a really high off the glass, off the glass shot. When it looked like and maybe he just read the defense wrong, but it looked like if he just would have kept going and tried to to drive it home, he ended up missing the shot. So double, like if he goes off the glass and makes it, I have less to complain about. But I felt like he could have really driven it home, and instead he missed a easy layup. So I think if he starts getting hit the bench. I don't know. I don't even know if it's necessary to hit the bench. I think he was there, and he just decided to go up and sit it down. Right. I don't know. But yes. I think when he starts doing that and starts instilling maybe some fear in the defense a little more on drives, he's gonna become a nightmare.
Yeah, I would agree. That's what makes Keldon so fun to watch, is he attacks with such viciousness and so assertive. First game of the season, he was right. He was like attacking the basket into Jonas Valanciunas, I think, for the Raptors, just like right into his teeth. And he's kind of been like that, like going like a bat out of hell ever since. And DeJounte does that on the court, like with his movement, but he doesn't attack the rim with that like amount of intensity or ferocity. So I agree. I would like to see maybe the next off season or two, we start maybe get a bow flex and beef up a little bit, and maybe that adjusts.
One last thing on DeJounte. This is my hot take on DeJounte now.
All right.
I think DeJounte is now better at the poke away from the offensive player at the top of the key for a breakaway layup or dunk than Kawhi Leonard was.
He looks great with that, and he's waiting on it. It's his move. He knows how to do it. I don't think I've seen him get called for a foul on any of them. And again, he's not doing it to like scrubs. He did it to Kemba Walker. He did it to Jamal Murray. Like that's his move, and he's got it down pat.
Yep. So we, well, we can just go one of two ways. I'll let you choose your own adventure here. Do you want to talk about the rodeo road trip, or do you want to talk about Tall Luca?
Oh boy.
Well, I don't know both of them. It's just which one do you want to do first?
All right, save me Luca for the end. Let's go through the road trip quick.
Okay,
here.
Cool. Rodeo road trip. Steven, I didn't realize until 2 days ago that the Spurs were going on a rodeo
But
road
there
trip.
is a rodeo road trip.
There is a rodeo road trip this year. Sean Elliott said so himself on the broadcast. So let me how about this? Let me read off these games to you, and then we can try to figure out how the Spurs are going to do on this road trip.
Okay.
Good thing. The Spurs get 2 days of rest before they play again on Friday at Atlanta. Then 2 days later, they're at Charlotte, followed by a back-to-back. This one could be tough because they're bad at those in general. Detroit and Cleveland on a back-to-back. Yeah. Okay. Then they get another couple days off, and my gosh, they have 3 more games on the trip after that. February 20th, they're at the Knicks. 22nd, at the Pacers, finishing off the road trip on the 24th at Oklahoma City. So 7 games, 1 back-to-back in the mix.
I got a hot take for you.
Yeah.
They should win all 7.
Woo! I think they should.
I think this team has surprised us. They're better than they thought they're better than we thought they are. They're better than they probably thought they were. Every team that you just named, I mean, Atlanta, decent team. They can beat Atlanta. Charlotte, they can beat Charlotte. Who'd you say after that? Detroit and...
Yep, they've got Detroit and Cleveland on a back-to-back.
They can beat both of those teams easily. Detroit has been playing pretty good recently. And then there's like, who's that? OKC in the mix? Like
OKC's at the end, yeah. So let me rephrase this. The Spurs, as of today, not a single team they're playing on this road trip has a winning record.
Is this the easiest road trip ever? Like,
it might be.
I feel like we get some tough ones on the rodeo.
There's usually some pretty, normally I feel like they normally go up the West Coast on the rodeo.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Usually get LA, both LA teams, Golden State, and you're like, okay, there's Sacramento, and then you go play Portland, and you're like, oh, all right, it's Portland, who knows? And then you hit and then you hit Utah, and then usually they're like, and then you're gonna go play across the country and play the Brooklyn Nets or something.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah.
So they probably won't go 7-0, but I'm gonna call this a 5-2. I think they'll lose that game to the Cleveland Cavaliers because they suck at back-to-backs. And I also think that they're gonna end up dropping. There was another team that you said in there. Who was the 5 and 6 game? The 5th and 6th game?
So that's the Knicks, and then they got the Pacers after that.
Pacers, that's the team. I think they might drop that there. So I'm going to say they lose to the Cavs and the Pacers, but they're going to beat these other teams. I am looking forward to that Charlotte team. I think Charlotte's an interesting team, fun team, but I'd like to see how DeJounte and LaMelo Ball match up. I had a phase last year around the NBA draft where I was like, Spurs should take Melo Ball. Probably good that they didn't, but anyways,
not that they had the chance.
Yeah, not that they had the chance.
I think I agree with you. I also think they're going to go 5-2. I think here's what I think. I feel like we've probably said this every year around the rodeo road trip, but I think most years it's true that the Spurs really define themselves on most rodeo road trips. And actually, this team, more than any team, stands to gain a lot. I think from the rodeo road trip because they're terrible at home. If they can really get ahead and on this road trip, because if they come out of this road trip 5-2. They will be 19-13, almost halfway through the season, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, they're better than we thought they were, and better than they thought they were.
And I think, here's what I'm nervous about. I'm nervous about LaMarcus Aldridge coming back in the middle of this road trip and clogging up.
Yeah, kind of stuck on LaMarcus Aldridge because do you want to bring him back and show off that he's healthy so that you can trade him, or is it just kind of like you're at the end here and you don't rush him back because you're not going to trade him and you're just going to break in case of emergency, should you actually end up in the playoffs and have to play against a team with two bigs like the Lakers or somebody like that. So it's
I saw someone post on Twitter the other day that LaMarcus wasn't even at the game. So I'm wondering,
Kawhi vibes.
Is that, well, my question was, is his hip thing a serious enough injury that he actually like needs to spend some time away and work it out, or is this LaMarcus just feeling like he's the veteran who doesn't have to show up to these kinds of things?
Yeah, I've tried to watch his body language a little bit, like as he hasn't played in some fourth quarters, and to be honest with you, like it doesn't seem that bad. Like he doesn't seem like he's too upset about it. So I don't want to go stir any pots here. I mean this with all due respect to the guy as an individual, but if he's injured and he's not playing right now, like it's probably not the worst thing for the Spurs, especially if he's not a part of their long-term plan. At worst, he's an expiring contract. He's cap space coming up. So like I said, they're probably not going to trade anybody because that's not what the Spurs do. So if he ends up just being hey man, I'm going to start because I'm LaMarcus Aldridge, but I'm really going to play 24 minutes a game and break in case of emergency. And then, so it's like this, okay, well, it's just, you get healthy when you get healthy. And then, we'll basically use you for the last third of the season.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Like there's worse situations for that. At least he's not starting and playing 36 minutes a game.
Right.
So,
yeah. Okay. Well, that leaves us with another player on the Spurs roster who happens to play the same position sometimes as LaMarcus Aldridge. The 6'10".
Here we go.
Luka Šimanić.
Great game today.
Who apparently had a really good G League game today. I've seen some highlights. I haven't actually gotten to spend a lot of time with it because I was working. But did you watch?
I had it on in my office. I didn't get to see a bunch of it. Here's the thing about Luka. He's got some talent. I make a running joke on Twitter a lot. It's like my main problem is that he's not very good at basketball. Like if you're in the NBA, if you were drafted by an NBA team, like you're better at basketball than the average bear. The problem is like the margin for error is so small in the NBA. There's a lot of people who are good at basketball. In fact, everybody in the NBA is good at basketball. So you have to be better than just, he's good at basketball. He's got talent. He is a versatile big man. He's probably more versatile of a big man than anybody who's ever been in a Spurs uniform. Just the question is like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? And I get giggles whenever I'm like, this is a guy that put up amazing numbers in the first game of the G League season. And everybody's like, see, we told you he's good. You're a hater. And I'm like, guy can't even sniff the court, but barely in garbage time, and in the big club. So the G League is there for development. But if you've taken a guy as the 19th overall pick, and now we're in year 2, and you're still trying to see what he needs to develop into, to see if he can even be a rotational player. I mean, he's not even like in the G League to be a rotational player this year. Like this G League is so that to see if he can be a rotational player next year. And he's under contract. This is not a guy who's on a 2-way contract. Like he's a signed first round draft pick. And so he was drafted one spot behind Lonnie Walker was drafted. He was drafted ahead of where Keldon Johnson was drafted. He was drafted 8 spots behind where Devin Vassell is drafted. And to see him just like floating around in the G League, and then people say like, oh, he's only 21, give him time to develop. Yeah, he's 21. Like players are playing at 21, especially first round draft picks. I'm sure that there's a few exceptions to guys who are not, but it's not like you're shelving him for down the road. Like he is a player that the Spurs need. Like they would need his skill set. And so my thought is, especially with LaMarcus Aldridge injured, especially with him injured, why is the guy not on the court? So I hope that I'm wrong about him. I hope he turns out to be a freaking amazing basketball player. and they retire his jersey. But right now it's just like, yeah, he's tall. Like that's Luka.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel bad about it, but I don't know what else. I don't know how I'm supposed to read that.
I spent a little bit of time today seeing people on Twitter say that they were wrong about their assessment of Luka, and I'm like, okay, hold on. This is one game of this season of G League. He played in 33 G League games last season. It's not like this is the first time he's played in the G League and done well. He averaged last year in the G League over 15 points, just under eight rebounds. Yeah. He didn't shoot particularly well from three at least, but he shot overall 43% in the G League last year. Over his final 10 games of the G League, he actually looked pretty good. He shot 50%. Averaging 19 points a game with almost just under 9 boards. So to have the game that he had today was not unheard of in the G League. And no, he hasn't played many minutes in the NBA. And we saw, the one, I don't know, but he only come into one game this year and he immediately.
Maybe like two or three. Yeah, but it hadn't been pretty.
Right. So I think everyone needs to try. I don't know if I've countered a sane Luka take from anyone in the Spurs fandom yet.
Right. You're either all the way like he's a total bust, or he's minutes away from being the franchise player.
Right.
And it's like I kind of just play to it because it's so dramatic. It's so dramatic. And I think the guy just needs to play. He's clearly got enough talent to be here. Even in his highlight reels, G League, I don't care. But dude, play your game. Get out there and play. And if that means you're playing in 4 minutes of garbage time, then go play. But he doesn't. He gets in garbage time. He goes and stands in the corner. There's a rebound that comes off. He's now playing against the other team's scrubs, and he's like, "Oh, I can't get a rebound, dude. Get in." Like that's why Drew Eubanks is playing, because not because he's better than you. It's because this guy on the court is just like running into everybody, and he's just jumping at this and trying to block that shot and trying to get this rebound. And a lot of times he looks like a big dork, but he's making an effort. And Luka's just like, "Oh man, all right, okay, I go stand in the corner now."
You got to think that Luka, he played. Him and Keldon were both rookies last year, and look at the way Keldon plays basketball. Like we talked about how he's kind of in a shooting slump right now, but that guy goes for offensive boards. He goes for
all the time.
Boards. He's making himself known. He's making his presence known on the court. Like you got to put a body on Keldon Johnson.
Yep. That's how DeJounte Murray did it too.
That's how they cut their teeth, and they also benefit a little bit from some injuries that force them into those positions. Especially with DeJounte, Tony Parker had pretty brutal injury, and he got kind of thrust into the lineup. It was probably his job to take over anyways, but that's when he made the most of that opportunity. Luka, I just don't know. And
Luka,
go ahead.
I was going to say Luka will be fine. Whatever is going to happen with Luka will happen the way that it's supposed to happen. But just like with Lonnie Walker, just like with Derek White, just like with DeJounte Murray, we need to stop putting these unreasonable expectations on our young players. Let these guys develop. No idea what this guy's going to be in the NBA. We don't know if he's going to be an all-star, if he's going to be a glorified bench player. But give this guy the chance to carve out a role for him. And that probably goes for me a little bit. Like, okay, let's see what this guy can do. I'm not ready to call him a bust, but I do think we should see flashes now of what he can be. But let's all just take a breath and step back from the ledge, my friend.
We did the same song and dance with Lonnie, and
we did.
The jury's still kind of out on him. He's still.
Hey man, here's what I can tell you. I bought a Keldon jersey. I'm going for Luka next. I'm going to buy a Luka Samanic jersey. That will be my next purchase.
Really?
Don't know when that'll be, but I'm going to support the guy.
There's no free agent target or trade target that you would purchase ahead of Luka?
No, I don't like to do that. I mean, I bought DeMar's because I don't know. I just felt betrayed by Kawhi. But I still to this day haven't bought an Aldridge's or Rudy Gay's. I'm not going to do that either.
Yeah.
I will buy. I don't. I think Luka's going to be my next one. So when
if Bradley Beal was a San Antonio Spur, would you buy a Luka jersey ahead of Bradley Beal?
It's a good question. Probably not Luka over Bradley. I'd probably buy a Bradley Beal jersey.
I would probably buy a Bradley Beal jersey.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any shame in that, man.
Okay, good.
All right, Steven, I think that's all the time we got this week.
Yeah, man.
It's been real. It's been fun, and excited to watch the Spurs go on this rodeo road trip and see. I'm banking on 5-2. We'll check in on.
I like it.
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Remember to rate us, rate the show. Give us a positive rating, please. Don't rate the show if you're not going to give a positive rating. Otherwise, Steven and I don't get paid. Just kidding, we don't get paid. Shout out to Whataburger. Go Spurs, go.
Go Spurs, go.